So this woman hates this other woman, and she's about to try to ruin her life by planting illegal substances in her car. So the story actually starts with this woman, Kelli. And Kelli is a volunteer at the local elementary school. She's PTA president, and everyone likes her. But one day, after school, she's at the school, she's volunteering, watching the kids, and one of the kids, this kid, Luke, he's late when lining up with the other students. And he accidentally ends up getting locked out of the school. And Luke gets upset and he starts crying, and he's locked out for around 5 to 8 minutes before eventually someone notices and they let him in. But then this woman shows up, Jill Easter. And Jill Easter is Luke's mom, and she is pissed that Luke accidentally got locked outside. So she goes up to Kelli and she lets her have it. She's screaming and she's yelling and calling her negligent. How could you leave my child locked outside for 5 whole minutes? So Kelli apologizes to Jill Easter and she tells her that Luke was locked out because he didn't line up fast enough, and that he was probably slow in getting to the door. And Jill Easter hears this and she thinks Kelli is calling her son mentally slow. So Jill Easter just loses it. She can't let Kelli get away with this. And that is when she starts plotting her revenge. So the next day, Jill Easter shows up to the school to talk to the principal, and she explains what had happened the day before, and she demands that they fire Kelli from her volunteer job. So the school admins investigate, and they see that Kelli did nothing wrong, so they don't fire her. And of course, this just pisses Jill Easter off even more. So she goes and prints flyers that warn people about what a horrible person Kelli is and that she should be fired. And then she stands out in front of the school and passes them out to parents. But still, the school doesn't fire Kelli. Then Jill Easter goes and complains to the superintendent, and Kelli still doesn't get fired. Then Jill Easter goes and complains to one of the state boards of California, and Kelli still doesn't get fired. And Jill Easter, she isn't going to let this slide. She's had enough. She is going to get her revenge one way or another. So she goes and files a police report, including a restraining order, claiming that Kelli is harassing her son and stalking her, and that somehow Kelli tried to unalive her. And since Jill Easter has no proof of any of this, because she's making it all up, the restraining order is ultimately denied. Oh, but she's not done. She then goes and gets her husband, this guy, Kent Easter, who is a high-powered attorney. She gets him to file a civil lawsuit against Kelli. And this lawsuit claims that because Kelli left her son locked outside for 5 minutes, he had been the victim of false imprisonment and intentional infliction of emotional distress. And of course, that lawsuit, it goes nowhere. But understandably, all of this conflict is just stressing Kelli out. And she doesn't know what she's gonna do. But then, suddenly, bam, Jill Easter goes silent. No more drama, no more lawsuits, nothing. And months go by, and Kelli has heard nothing more from the Easters. And it seems like all of this harassment has finally stopped. Until almost a year has passed since Luke got locked outside the school for 5 minutes. And then one night, a man makes a phone call to police, and he tells them that he saw Kelli driving dangerously.
I was calling because my daughter's a student at Plaza Vista Elementary School, and I'm concerned one of the parent volunteers there may be using drugs.
And this man also tells them that he saw Kelli driving to the school while on drugs. So police, they go to the school to investigate because that's where she is. She's there volunteering. And they pull Kelli aside and they tell her about the report they got. And they ask her if they can search her car. And Kelli's like, sure, I have nothing to hide. So police go and they open up her car and they search. And guess what they find? A whole lot of drugs. And this shocks everyone. And of course, the police, they start to grill Kelli. They get her to do a curbside sobriety test, you know, like where they make you walk the straight line and stuff. And by the way, all this isn't happening in private. No. This is all happening right in the school parking lot, in front of all the students and parents and teachers who are all watching. And poor Kelli is horrified, like her job is on the line. Well, luckily, Kelli passes the sobriety test because she's sober. And police, they start to believe maybe Kelli isn't high. Maybe someone planted those drugs in her car. So detectives, they get on it and they start investigating who made that call to police. And they track that call to this nearby hotel. And there they check surveillance footage, and that's where they see Kent Easter on the screen walking into the hotel. And this is just right before that phone call to police was made. So then detectives get a hold of their phone tracking records, and they see that Kent Easter's phone was near Kelli's apartment complex the night before a bunch of drugs just randomly appeared in Kelli's car. Meaning he found out where she lives, snuck over to her apartment complex in the middle of the night, planted drugs in her car, and called the police on her the next day to make it so that she got busted in front of the whole school, hoping to get her fired. But here's where the story gets really crazy. After all this, detectives, they start surveilling the Easters. And then one day, they see a strange man leaving the Easters' home. This man, Gomez. So they pull Gomez over and they question him. And it turns out he's a firefighter who had been smashing with Jill Easter. They were having an affair behind Kent Easter's back. So detectives ask Gomez to wear a wire and then meet up with Jill. And surprisingly, Gomez cooperates and he agrees to do this. So then he meets up with her at a local park, and Gomez doesn't end up getting much information out of her, but he does end up telling her that they should stop seeing each other until the heat on her dies down. And Jill Easter doesn't like this idea one bit. And she flips out and she starts yelling at him and screaming, and she breaks up with him. And then after that, she randomly starts showing up to his home where his wife is, and she starts confronting his wife, telling her all about the affair that they've been having for the last 2 years. She prints out photos that Gomez had sent to her, and she leaves them in his mailbox for his wife to find. She also sends emails to his wife's work, trying to give the wife's co-workers all the details about her and Gomez's affair. And those emails sometimes include intimate photos that she and Gomez had taken. It's a whole mess. But Jill Easter wants as many people as possible to know that Gomez has been cheating on his wife and that he's a bad person. She's basically doing everything she can to ruin his reputation. And I'm starting to see a pattern here. Anyway, eventually police arrest Jill Easter and Kent Easter for conspiring to plant drugs in Kelli's car, and here's her mugshot, and here's his. And Jill Easter pleads guilty, and she's sentenced to 120 days in jail, and she's disbarred from ever practicing law again. Did I forget to mention she's a lawyer? Well, not anymore. She got disbarred. While Kent Easter gets sentenced to 180 days in jail, and his legal license is suspended. And ultimately, the Easters end up getting a divorce. Womp womp. Couldn't have happened to a nicer couple. Meanwhile, Kelli sues them in civil court, and she's awarded $5.7 million as compensation. I gotta say, $5.7 million for going through this hell, that sounds like it was worth it. Get that money, girl. Good for her. Shout out to Irvine, California.